did, Lord, somebody. We need an organization that no one downtown loves. We need one that's ready and willing to take action. Any kind of action, by any means necessary.
Black people in this country have been the victims of violence at the hands of the white man for 400 years. And following the ignorant Negro preachers, we have thought that it was godlike to turn the other cheek to the brute that was brutalizing us. Martin Luther King is just a 20th century or modern Uncle Tom or a religious Uncle Tom who is doing the same thing today to keep Negroes defenseless in the face of attack that Uncle Tom did on the plantation to keep those Negroes defenseless in the face of the attack of the Klan in that day.
Malcolm X, one of the most articulate exponents of the black Muslim philosophy, has said of your movement and your philosophy that it plays into the hands of the white oppressors, that they are happy to hear you talk about love for the oppressor because this disarms the Negro and fits into the stereotype of the Negro as a meek, turning the other cheek sort of creature. Would you care to comment on Mr. X's belief?
Well, I don't think of love as, in this context, as emotional bosh. But I think of love as something strong and that organizes itself into powerful, direct action. Now, this is what I try to teach in the struggle in the South, that we are not engaged in a struggle that means we sit down and do nothing. That there's a great deal of difference between non-resistance to evil and non-violent resistance. I think, though, that we can be sure that the vast majority of Negroes who engage in the demonstrations and who understand the nonviolent philosophy will be able to face dogs and all of the other brutal methods that are used without retaliating with violence, because they understand that one of the first principles of nonviolence is a willingness to be the recipient of violence while never inflicting violence upon another.
Malcolm and Martin, two men coming from unimaginably different backgrounds, whose positions originally were poles apart, driven closer and closer together. By the time each died, their positions had become virtually the same position. It can be said, indeed, that Martin picked up Malcolm's burden, articulated the vision which Malcolm had begun to see and for which he paid with his life, and that Malcolm was one of the people Martin saw on the mountaintop.
Examiner made a report back here in the last Sunday's paper that we were anti-white, that we hold no bones, this is a quote, pick no bones about being anti-white. This is a bold-faced lie. We don't hate nobody because of their color. We hate oppression. We hate murder of black people in our communities. We hate the gross unemployment that exists in our communities.
What is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met, and it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity.
When he came home that evening, he was real excited, about this idea of a poor people's campaign starting in Marks, Mississippi, with a mule train and going all the way to Washington, D.C., picking up people along the way.
This is a search for an alternative to riots. And if the nation doesn't respond to us, as we labor that 2 or 3 months, however long it takes, God only knows what we will face in terms of chaos. This is a kind of last desperate demand for the nation to respond to nonviolence.
Listen, I want this movement to work. That's why I said the most radical guy lived in the 20th century was Martin Luther King Jr. It took a radical cat. Let me say my thing and then I'll listen in up. I said the most radical cat lived in the 20th century was Martin Luther King Jr. It took a radical cat to put 50,000 black people in Alabama off buses. The question, as I understood it, was not the fact that Dr. King didn't do anything. It wasn't the issue. The issue was if we're going to take people on a go for broke, what are we going to be able to return back to Mississippi with in our hands? Nothing. What are we going to be able to return back to Chicago with in our hands? Nothing. And what Carlos, as I understood, was saying, I'd like you to state that if we're not, then let's just say we're not going to do that, and then he'll know. And if we are, say we are.
Can I speak to that, though? Because,
no. This is not nonsense, okay? If the thing becomes the demands, and then you don't come back with the demands, you're in trouble.
I don't think we can give anybody any guarantees. So that we've reached a point where we almost are where the Jews are when Hitler took power. That are you going to sit by and wait until you're put in a concentration camp, or you're going to organize and fight? Now, I don't know whether we're going to win or lose or draw or what we're going to bring back, but I'm not going to sit by and let the liberal wing or the progressive forces in the Negro community get chopped up. I'm going to fight. And if
Martin usually could bring us together, but he always let us fight it out for ourselves for a long time. And the only time he really got mad with me was when I wouldn't disagree with everybody. He sort of expected me to be the conservative one. And because a movement needed wild ideas and radical notions, but it also needed to be pulled back into perspective to do something that was actually doable and attainable. And I got tired of being the reactionary. So I just said, that's right. That's exactly what we ought to do. And he jumped up and got mad. He said, Andy, if you don't express, he said, if you don't, end up giving the conservative view, you don't leave me any room to come down in the middle.
Now, some folks celebrate Abraham Lincoln, but we're going to celebrate Martin Luther King's Day today. Don't let him out of here. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Dr. King. Happy birthday to you.
We know how fond you are of our president, Lyndon Johnson. And we know how you're supporting everything. I got this little cup for you, and I want this back because it's mine. And it says, let me read. It says, we are cooperating with Lyndon Johnson's war on poverty. Drop coins and bills in the cup. And
We read one day, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But if a man doesn't have a job or an income, he has neither life nor liberty and the possibility for the pursuit of happiness. He merely exists. Bombs in Vietnam exploded home. They destroyed the dream and possibility for a decent America. It is estimated that we spend $322,000 for each enemy we kill in Vietnam, while we spend in the so-called war on poverty in America only about $53 for each person classified as poor. The other thing I want you to understand is this, that it didn't cost the nation one penny to integrate lunch counters. It didn't cost the nation one penny to guarantee the right to vote. But now we are dealing with issues that cannot be solved without the nation spending billions of dollars and undergoing a radical redistribution of economic power.
Georgia, get me down low. Jericho.
Throughout the campaign, it ought to be a continuing massive lobbying.
That's right.
Now, not just one day. Every time people come in that town, they ought to go straight to Capitol Hill, to the departments of government, Justice Department, Department of Commerce, Health, Welfare, and Education. They're just going day in and day out.
In school, trying to educate my kids and trying to buy a home. It was really rough. But I know that something had to happen, that we couldn't continue on making $1.04 an hour. Was really disturbed that Martin would even consider going to Memphis. We were trying to organize poor whites, Hispanics, Southern blacks, Northern blacks. There was just a tremendous organizing job. And I didn't know how you could take on anything else. And he said, well, Jim Lawson has been around for so long, and here garbage workers on strike. He just wants me to come in and make a speech and then lead a march in the morning.
Has dignity.
Yes.
But you are doing another thing. You are reminding not only Memphis, but you are reminding the nation that it is a crime for people to live in this rich nation and receive starvation wages.
First time that the concentration had been on poor peoples and their living conditions, and we wanted to be a part of that. That's what we had been working toward. We felt through voter registration that political power would bring economic power. Then we were able to turn people out to hear him that had never been to a mass meeting before.
I'm not the only one. It's just so many of us right around. It's just, I don't have children, don't have shoes, clothes, just to go around. They's naked and hungry. Part time you have to cook your children pinto beans morning, down, and supper. They don't know what else get a good meal. We go work in Miss Ann's house for $2 a day. If we don't want to do that, she tell us, well, you got to move.
You have lunch.
We had lunch, yeah.
You haven't had lunch yet?
A woman came up to me.
Now, I want some of you all to go to Washington with us. Even if you have to bring your whole family, we are going to have in Washington facilities, and we're going to have food, and we are going to demand that the government do something about these conditions. Down to Washington on the boat.
While we were marching, I was about in the first 1/3 of the march, as I could tell at that point. We began to hear windows breaking. We began to hear loud rustling and uneasiness among the marchers. And then we began to see individuals who were stepping out of the march and throwing things at one dude.
And all the glass started breaking and the noise and
The police cars were running, the sirens, and everybody was all confused and just running over each other.
They're fighting tit for tat, tooth for tooth, an eye for an eye and a life for a life. The rebellions that we see are merely dress rehearsals for the revolution that's to come.
You can't tell the young kids today this in Harlem that are nonviolence. You can't get through to them with nonviolence today. You have to have some type of other approach with them. And I say that Dr. King's approach is a little outdated for Harlem, for Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Others can do what they want to do. That's their business. Other civil rights leaders, for various reasons, refuse or can't take a stand or have to go along with the administration. That's their business. But I must say tonight that I know that justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. They seem to forget that before I was a civil rights leader, I answered a call which left the Spirit of the Lord upon me and anointed me to preach the gospel. During the early days of my ministry, I read the Apostle Paul saying, "Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." And I decided then that I was going to tell the truth as God revealed it to me. I don't know about you. I ain't going to study war no more.
That evening we went to the Abernathys for dinner, and we spent the evening at their home. And Martin, of course, liked to eat, and Mrs. Abernathy had some of his favorite food and even homemade ice cream.
And we did not talk about Memphis. The news came on, and whenever there was a flash on TV about it, he got very quiet, and he was really, really sort of depressed. And I think he was more depressed that night, I believe, than I'd ever seen him. Because the violence really got to him.
This is America's opportunity to help bridge the gulf between the haves and the have-nots. And the question is whether America will do it. There's nothing new about poverty. What is new is that we now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty. And the real question is whether we have the will.
It was a tornado warning in Memphis that evening, and it was raining, and wind was blowing everywhere. I believe a little tornado came to Memphis also, and he knew that there would not be a big crowd, and he said to me in the meeting with the staff, "Ralph, I want you to go and speak this evening at the mass meeting."
And he didn't want to go to that meeting that night. He said he had sent Reverend Abernathy over, and he said, because I just didn't feel like going, but it's thundering and lightning here. We have a thunderstorm taking place. He said, but you know, Ralph has just called and said that I needed to come over. And so the people were waiting for me, and they really didn't want anybody else to speak but me. So he said, I guess I'll go on over there, and I'll call you later. He said, I'll call you tomorrow night.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. China or even Russia or any totalitarian country. Maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. So just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
The next day, I was in the federal court. We got the injunction thrown out, and we got our permission to march, and I guess about 4:30 or 5 o'clock, I came back to the Lorraine Motel, and I found Martin and A.D. and Ralph and everybody gathered there, and they'd been eating and had lunch and were talking and clowning, and when I came in, Martin just grabbed me and threw me down on the bed and started beating me with a pillow. I mean, he was like a big kid, and he was fussing because I hadn't reported to him, and I tried to tell him I was on the witness stand, I'm here in the federal court, and he was, just standing on the bed swinging the pillow at me, and I'm trying to duck with him saying, "You have to let me know what's going on," and finally I snatched the pillow and started swinging back, and everybody, it was sort of like the after you make a touchdown, and everybody piles on everybody. It was just, people just started throwing pillows and piling on top of everybody and laughing and going on, and then he stopped and said, "Let's go. We do a dinner at 6, and it was at that time about 6 o'clock. And he went on up to his room to put on a shirt and tie. And Martin came out and asked, "You think I need a coat?" And we said, "Yeah, it's pretty cool, and you've had a cold. You better go back and get a coat." And he said, "I don't know whether I need a coat." And the next thing we know, a shot. Well, I thought it was a car backfiring, a firecracker.
And I jumped naturally. And I turned and saw only his feet. And I ran to him and took
his head into my hands and began to pat his cheek and said, "Martin, this is Ralph. This is Ralph. This is Ralph. It will be all right. Everything is going to be all right. Everything is going to be all right, Martin."
I have some very sad news for all of you, and I think sad news for all of our fellow citizens and people who love peace all over the world. And that is that Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis.
I don't think Americans should mourn Martin Luther King. I think they should mourn themselves.
Another dear, may I go downtown instead of out to play and march the streets of Birmingham in a freedom march today. But mother, I won't be alone. Other children will go with me and march the streets of Birmingham to make my country free. Mother dear, may I go downtown instead of out to play and march the streets of Birmingham in a freedom march today. But mother, I won't be alone. Other children will go with me and march the streets of Birmingham to make my country free. Mother dear, may I go downtown instead of out.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children be able to sing with new meaning, my country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when we gather, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Take my hand,
Someday we will have to stand before the God of history. And we will talk in terms of things we've done. And it seems that I can hear the God of history saying, that was not enough. But I was hungry. And you fed me not.